I would like to welcome Dr. Sally Cathcart, so we're going to turn it over to her.
Thank you very much, Katie, and thank you, Julie. And, first of all, I'd like to say thank you so much for getting and distributing Ready to Play over in the States, because it's great that it's going to be available to the wider public. And I know I speak for Sharon and myself to say, your friendship has meant a lot to us over the years. And although we might be separated by the ocean, we do feel it's a real true friendship. And so thank you for all that you've done and all that you've brought to the UK piano scene with your Piano Safari, which is a very popular, getting more and more popular. Okay, so I'm going to start though with a song, everybody. And this is one of the songs from book 2, and it's Engine Engine. And it's always good just to get yourself, first of all, kind of warmed up. Now, you can either join me or not. It's completely up to you, but I'm certainly going to be doing all the actions. You're sitting in your own little houses, up to you whether you join me or not. So the action goes like this. You're going to stamp with your, I never know whether I'm back to front. I don't think I am. So you're going to stamp left, right, tap, tap, clap, clap, left, right. So you might want to stand up and see if you can do this. Right. I'm tapping my knees. I know you can't quite see it. Have you got that going? Keep it going. Are you ready? Up we go. Engine, engine number 9, running down the New York line. If she's polished, how she'll shine. Engine, engine number 9. Keep it going. In fact, we're going to get a little bit faster now. Are you ready? Off we go. Engine, engine number 9, running down the London line. If she's polished, how she'll shine. Engine, engine number 9. Hey. And yes, I changed the words, didn't I? And that's one of the things about this song, is that you can change the railway line. We're very keen on railways over here in the UK. You can change the railway line and get the child to come up whatever they like. Now, if you were doing that over there, then you might discover that it was a little bit harder to get the coordination going than you initially thought. Yeah, if you didn't try it, then try it on later. And I wasn't even asking you to sing the song there. If I then add the singing on top of it, then it becomes even harder. And we're going to give it one more go, see if you can do the actions, but this time I'm not going to do them. I'm not going to do the actions. I need you to do the actions and I'll do the singing. Okay, I'll get you going and then I'm going to drop out, and let's see if I've raised the challenge just a little bit more for you. So you ready? Off we go. Left, right, tap, 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 tap. Keep going. Off I go, engine, engine number 9, running down the Kentucky line. If she's polished, how she'll shine. Engine, engine number 9. So what I find is that it's one thing to imitate and to follow when somebody else is doing it, but then if I just drop back and I don't do the actions any longer, then it becomes harder again. So that's just one small example of what's going on in Ready to Play. It is about play, it is about challenge, it's about creating something that is going to be engaging for young students. The books have all been created and designed with children in mind, from the page layout to the colourful illustrations, and they're all designed as well to help the learning process in the best way possible. And I'll be showing you the books themselves in a bit. They're built on sound pedagogical principles. These aren't things I've just pulled from the air and go, oh, that would be nice to do. You know, there is a really sound progression behind the whole thing. And the principles come from not just music education, but also from education more generally. And the other thing I would like to just say is that I'm trying to provide teachers with as much support as possible, because I know this is kind of something slightly different. It's not a piano tutor book. That's one thing I also want you to know. It's not a piano tutor book. So I'm trying to help teachers really integrate this into their studio, and that support that I'm giving will be ongoing. We've got a dedicated Facebook group, for example. There's a YouTube channel with all the songs on it. and the accompaniments. There's also a SoundCloud channel, which has also got all the accompaniments. And I've just started over on Instagram, actually, something called Songs with Sally, which is going to be a new series where I'm singing the songs and playing the accompaniments for the children to join in with me in between their lesson time. More on all those things later. So, as I say, it's not a piano method and it's not a tutor book, but it can be used as a companion to almost any book. I don't think there's very many books like this out there that have making music and learning about music at its heart. Books that are really playful, that engage the students, and also books that give the musicianship more status. And you'll hear me say several times that actually I'm a musician first and foremost. I'm a musician first at my heart, and then on top of that, I've learnt to be a pianist. We are all musicians. Doesn't matter whether you play the violin, the viola, which I also do, the flute, the trombone. And what we have in common is a core set of musical concepts that we need to learn. And then we specialise on a particular instrument. And too often those core concepts, musical core concepts, get missed out of the learning process. Instead, we tend to go straight to the instrument. And I think, you know, the thing about the books is that these are not little bits of paper. This is a beautiful book. It brings with it a status and it brings with it an authority. And this has only really just occurred to me just recently in the last few days, that I think they get taken more seriously by parents, by the pupils, and actually by us, the teachers. I know in the past I've had little, you know, printouts. I've printed something off, and then the student takes it away, and somehow it gets lost somewhere, and it doesn't reappear, and then I forget about it because I didn't write it down properly or something. But this, as I say, I think it brings status and an authority that it's okay, justifiable to do this sort of thing in a piano lesson. Okay. Now, one of the secrets behind the book is the choice of songs. And these songs really, really appeal to children. We know they do. They're tried and tested. Many of them have come from the children's playground tradition. They're songs that you will hear in playgrounds the world over, some of the tunes anyhow. And they have a simplicity, to be honest, that makes them really, really easy to learn, but also means that they're full of pedagogical riches, and they're really quite deep. And the focus of the books is on the oral, it's on the listening, it's getting the ears going. If we don't listen, then there's no point in just pushing our fingers down onto the keys, is there? So it's getting them listening and increasing their sensitivity. And the listening then leads to playing on the piano, and it leads to reading from notation. All things follow on. So it's about putting the heart and the body and the ear at the center of the learning and letting the cognitive understanding come out of that. The concrete before the abstract, as all good pedagogical learning should be. Another feature of the book which I think is worth mentioning is that it encourages an independent self-assessment as it goes on. And I'll show you those as I go through. But self-knowledge, being able to decide how well you're able to do something is important, I think, for the children to start their learning. So I'm just going to go in and share my screen for a moment. If you've got any questions at all, I think as Katie said, then please do put them in the chat box and we can look at those when we come. Okay, so I'm just going to go to here. I was just going to show you where I'm based. I'm just there. I'm south of Oxford and west of London, okay? And the next village to me is this beautiful place. I wonder if anybody recognises it. It's known as Highclere Castle, and it is indeed Downton Abbey. So that is 1 mile in that direction. That tells you a little bit about where I am. Now, the development of Ready to Play is quite a long one. It's come out of a lot of research and a lot of thinking. It started when I was doing an MA, and out of that came this interest in the brain and how the brain works, and how actually if we just go with a notation-based approach, then it kind of kills all the sensitivity to the music. Because of that, I went off and got some Kodai training. I also got something called a Churchill Fellowship, which here in the UK, when Winston Churchill died, the grateful nation donated an awful lot of money. And every year they fund about 100 people to go off around the world and explore a particular subject. And mine was about oral learning in instrumental lessons. And you can see the photo on the top right. One of the places I went to was South Africa. A fascinating place. I went to South Africa, I went to Cuba, and I went to Hungary to find out how the oral really put the learning an instrument at a big advantage. Really, really did. And then I did a PhD, and then I've been working with my dear friend and colleague, as Katie has already said, Sharon Mark Taggart, and together we founded and continue to run with deep joy the Curious Piano Teachers. I've had also lots of opportunity to try out all these different things with on the piano teachers course based here in the UK. And every morning when we have these courses, we run something called a Sing Then Play along with Lucinda Mackworth-Young. And every time I come out with a song and I come out with a little game, and then the teachers go off and try it. So I've had lots and lots of opportunity to try all these ideas out, and I know they work. So let's have a quick look now behind the principles. So the whole premise behind this oral vocal approach is that we're all musicians. You've already heard me say that. I will come out with it again. Musicians first, pianists second. If we focus on teaching the musician, and then you'll find you'll get a more sensitive and a more switched on pianist as a result. Now you might say, now why do we do this through singing? You know, I'm not a singer. Well, to be honest, I'm not a singer. I'm a musician who sings. Okay, I'm not a trained singer in any shape or form, but singing is the thing that we all do. We all have a voice. Some people might say, oh, it's a tiny voice, but nevertheless, if you can talk, then unless you've got amusia, you can probably sing as well. And very few people have got that condition. And what singing and learning orally does is that it helps us to bring strong mental models in our head. Mental scaffolding, if you like, and that's in a way that nothing else can. That's what the singing does. And this is what Professor Gary McPherson and Alf Gabrielson say, who've done some of the key research into this whole area. Singing should be a common and natural part of all early instrumental lessons. Without it, we're on a hiding to nothing quite often. This is the first principle, that the singing helps to develop that inner musician. And once the inner musician starts to develop, then young pianists are in a much more secure place to go forth and develop all the various pianistic techniques. Another principle behind Ready to Play is step-by-step progression of learning. And you'll find, you know, there are a lot of crossovers between what I'm doing here and the Piano Safari, because Piano Safari has the same principle of step-by-step progression, really making sure that the learning is embedded before you then move on to the next stage. It takes longer, but you're all Piano Safari teachers, so you know that. But the learning is so much deeper and so much more long-lasting. Exactly the same here. So a step-by-step progression of learning, so that the learning comes out of play. Play is a really important part of what we're doing, not necessarily playing the piano, just playing around. And overall, the pupils build up, the students build up a large repertoire, all learnt orally. And as I say, the books have a really carefully thought through pedagogical progression underpinning them all. Well, I've mentioned this already. The third principle is that the learning emerges from play and fun activities that really challenge and engage the brain. Now, you've kind of experienced that a little bit there with Engine number 9. It's not just about singing the song, you see, it's about what can you do with that song to lift the level of challenge. and to keep lifting the level of challenge. So, you know, the first thing was, let's do the actions. Well, for some children, that would be quite hard in and of its own, so you might have to pare it back. But let's say once they get that, what do I do then? I increase the tempo. Okay, what do I do then? I stop modelling, so they have to be independent. What do I do then? I ask them to sing it along with me. What do we do then? We work out the rhythms. You know, we can go on and on and on with these songs. The movement, though, that's involved in many of the games suggested switches on the brain. It really fires up. I was going to say, you can see what's happening inside, but you can see the children become energized. And inside the brain, the neurons are all firing when this is happening. Switches on the brain, and it increases the level of concentration. And we all know, especially teaching online, concentration can really, really dip, because doing things to camera the whole time is really, really hard work. So stand up halfway through a lesson, do a game for 5 minutes, and you'll find that that will switch everything back on a little bit for you. So you start with the game, you start with the play, you start with the singing, and you let the learning come out of that. The conscious introduction of the concepts can come once they have been subconsciously absorbed, in just the same way that all learning takes place. Okay, onto the books. So I just love these books. Oh, I'm sorry, I know they're my books, but what I love is the colour, and I love the vibrancy. And I have to say, you know, they've been beautifully illustrated by my illustrator, Graham Longdon. So I'd just like to say a huge thank you to him. And I would send him the blank page, and it would come back with these wonderful illustrations that just lift everything. Almost all, not quite all, but almost all the illustrations you'll see are used as well to enhance pedagogical points. And I'll give you an example of those. Book 1 is for children aged between 5 to 8 years. And book 2, I think, is generally 6 to 9. But of course, there is a huge difference between a child of 5 and a child of 8 and how well they're going to get on with the book. I've been starting this book with a young beginner who was 7. This was back at April time. So she'll be going to her school year that she's going into now, she'll be rising 8. And she has picked them up really quickly, and we've made good progress, so that in the 1 term, which was quite a long term, wasn't it? It was about 11, 12 weeks, she has got to song 6 in that time. But she's 7. 7 and 8, yes, you would expect progress to be fairly rapid, but it does depend then again on the background of the child. The younger the child, the slower they're going to go. The younger the child, the slower they're going to go. So a 5-year-old is going to take probably in excess of a year, probably 15 months, maybe longer, to actually cover everything. And that's because the songs they might learn, but all the concepts and things that are going on underneath the songs, they take some understanding. And as I say, there's a huge difference between a child of 5 and a child of 7. Those 2 years, enormous development. I know some people are using them with 4-year-olds, and I would say yes, give it a go. I wouldn't necessarily say it's going to work absolutely beyond the first few songs, and that's because the concepts go too deep for them, you know, at that age. I have in my head the idea that I might write a pre-version of book 1 that would be suitable for 3 to 4-year-olds, and it would be much more with the stories and stuff like that that's going on there. So these are the children's books. These are written for the children. I want them to write on them. I want them to colour them in. I want them to just take ownership of them and get excited by them. They're laid out really simply on the page. There's lots of white space, because don't you find sometimes books get too much on a page, and we've tried to create some nice white space. And I'll show you now some of the different, how the presentation of each song follows the same sort of format. So this is the first song. This is Jelly on the Plate. And Katie, I wonder if you would mind, we've put together a sampler for everybody who's here. So Katie's going to share with you two files. One is exactly what you can see here, Jelly on the Plate, the 4 pages that go with the song. And the second thing she's going to share with you is the teacher's guide that I've written that will take you through this song. Let me just talk about this before I talk about the teacher's guide a little bit. So each song, we start with the song words, obviously, but the song words are only there really to act as a little reminder. And I only show them once the song has been learned. So the learning of the song actually happens with the book shut, and it will happen probably away from the piano, to be honest. Even online, I will stand up and I'll get them to stand up and we'll move away. So the song words are there. Obviously, they can take them home and they can look at it with mum and dad. Yes, let's get them looking at this with mum and dad, because mum and dad need teaching as well. And then I'm there throughout the book. Yeah, I keep going. Sally says, and as Sally says, I act as a guide. So through the books, I highlight the concepts and I define the concepts really, really carefully. And I'll show you an example of that here. So here we go. And this isn't from Jelly on a Plate. This is from Hey, Hey, Look at Me. So this is me defining rhythm. And I would suggest you say this to the pupil, depending on the age. You either say it to them. When you tap the rhythm of the words, it gives you the rhythm pattern. Here's that word, rhythm, and I would say probably isn't a funny word. It hasn't got any vowels in it. And then with its patterns of longer and shorter sounds, rhythm provides music with its flow. So you can link it back to me, the Sally says, and I know of one young pupil already who, having had her first lesson, when she went back to the second lesson, teacher asked her what she remembered. Sally. And obviously the teacher had shown her the picture of me at the beginning and things. So it's quite, I like guiding children, and it just deflects it from you and it says, what does Sally say? It's up to you whether you want to make that a big feature or not, really. Okay, so just going back to that first page, because at the very bottom, you'll notice that we have got the accompaniment. And the accompaniment is really the only thing on the page that is written there for you, the teacher. Everything else is for the pupil. Now, the accompaniments, this one runs across 2 pages, and they've all been written by me, and they've been written to try and provide colour and character. And the teacher just recently described them as being fresh and different. So here for Jelly on the Plate, it goes, are you ready? Off we go. Jelly on a plate. Jelly on a plate. Wibble wobble, wibble wobble, jelly on a plate. But the accompaniment should be used only when the song is already learnt. I don't use the accompaniment at the beginning, and I'll show you a video of something that I've put together that will kind of give you a sense of that. The accompaniments are to be used when we're going to do it on the piano in particular. And for example, with this one, we're going to get the student to do the bloops on the piano. Jelly on a plate, bloop. Jelly on a plate, bloop. Wibble wobble, wibble wobble, jelly on a plate. Okay. All right, so let's just move on to the second page. So the second page of the book, it has these I can statements. And this is for the pupil to look at home. I can say jelly on the plate with the accents. Can they? They can give it a little smile, they can give it a tick, whatever they like. I can play all the groups of 2 black notes on the piano keyboard with my right hand. Exactly the same with your left hand. So you can see already from the beginning, we are saying the chant first, we're engaging the child with that, but we're also finding patterns because, and I didn't actually show you this, but back on this previous page, oh, I've gone the wrong way. Wait a minute. No, I'm going the wrong way completely. Just bear with me. Here we go. There we go. So right at the top, underneath Jelly on the Plate, it has in the box what the particular concept is that's being introduced. This is the very first one. It makes a perfect first lesson, almost complete in itself. And I know for many of you, you might be taking on new students. So the idea behind this one is playing the piano and finding patterns. And on the teacher's guide that you've downloaded, I've given you a suggested sequence. Take what you want from it, use what you want, put in your own ideas, because we all do have our own ideas. Of course we do. But it does make a really good start to a series of piano lessons. And of course, at the end of the lesson, finally, the student has got a book that they can take away with them. Yeah, like this, instead of because they do love taking books away. All right, so let's just keep going. Yeah, so the ICANNs, I do like them to complete between the lessons. Do I go through them all in the next lesson? Probably not. No, I might just pick one or two. And then in this first song, because it's the very first lesson, we then have a ready to play section, and this is just a very general one. It's they're trying to make up their own words. You know, it could be pizza in the fridge, or apple in the car, or sandwich, or whatever. But for some of the other songs, it's really about playing around with all the various concepts that have been covered in that particular song. Sometimes it's purely creative, sometimes it's piano specific. So that gives you an overview of the different, of the layout really of each song, and majority of 4 pages long, some are 6 pages long that go into more detail. A song that's 4 pages long, we might do for 2 weeks, maybe 3. A song that is for 6 pages might do for 3 weeks, maybe 4. But when I say to do them, I'm talking about very short little snippets in a lesson. I'll talk more about that in a moment. So let me give you a quick overview of the progression of concepts. So in book 1, in terms of the rhythm, we look at keeping a steady pulse, we look at going faster and slower, rhythm notation, quarter notes and eighth notes are introduced, and quarter note rests are introduced. I think we have meter, bars and bar lines. Meter, I should say, measures for the American market. Yes, that should say measures. So over here they're called bars, and I think meter you spell differently as well, I have a feeling. So that's your rhythm. And then we also have pitch. Now let me just tell a little bit about the pitch, because each one of these, so, mi, we call that a tone set. And those 2 notes have a relationship. So and mi, they have a relationship in sound. So we call that relative pitch. And what we do is we develop the tone set. So we then have la, so, mi, that's your second tone set that comes in Rowboat Row, or Apple Tree, I think. And then we have mi, re, do, and then so, mi, do, so, mi, re, do. Tone sets are really important. They're like mini versions of scales, and they provide the child that scaffolding. This is what provides the scaffolding that we've talked about, so that they can begin to build up a mental sense of the music in their heads. Really important, the tone sets. I'm just going to mention here, if you're interested and want to find out more about this and how to teach each song in depth, I'm running some free training meetings next week on Zoom on Monday and Tuesday next week, and I think it's from I think it's 12 p.m. Eastern time, 12 p.m. Eastern time. I'll share more details with you about that later, but that's Monday and Tuesday, and it will take you through every song in book 1 and train you how to teach the song and give you ideas for the presentation of the songs, if you're interested in going deeper, because I can only give you an overview right now. Okay, so other concepts in book 1 include phrases, structure, the use of the thinking voice. The thinking voice is what you call audiation. It's the internal voice. Thinking voice is a lovely way of putting it for children. It's one I've used from the Voices Foundation, actually, an organisation I work for. We've used with great success for many, many years. So it really helps the child to get the sense of the voice in their head. We also introduce rhythm solfa, and I'll show you an example of that in a moment. We get fixed pitch, and we get the intervals of seconds and thirds. So fixed pitch as opposed to relative pitch. I've just been talking about relative pitch, but obviously when we go on the piano, we have to fix the pitch. And that's always been a bit of a problem actually for people. And I'm hoping I found a partial solution to that. I'm hoping. Okay, so then on to book 2. In book 2, again with rhythm, we go a bit further. We include syncopation, we have dotted quarter and eighth notes, and we have more on meter, just a little bit more on meter. In pitch terms, again, we go a little bit further. This time we cover the pentatonic. Do, re, mi, sol, la, sol, mi, re, do. And then we go on to the pentachord, which of course we know there's lots of pentachordal stuff in book 2 of Piano Safari. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do. But we also do the la pentachord, which of course is the minor version. La, ti, do, re, mi, re, do, ti, la. And there are those two things labelled below, the major pentachord, the minor pentachord. And we have one song using the major hexachord. So it's do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, la. Going over my break there. So that's the pitch progression. Other concepts, actually, yeah, we do more on structure. Structure and analysis are a really important thing, I think, for children to understand. And we introduce phrases quite early on in book 1 by looking at same and different. We take that a bit further than in book 2, and Engine indeed has a number 9 rondo, which is a lot of fun. We introduce the relative staves, so relative pitch, we have a relative stave, there's no formal clef at the beginning. But we do talk about as well in book 2 the clefs and the landmark notes. We cover sharps and flats, and we also cover intervals of fourths, fifths and sixths. Okay, so other features of the book, I'm just going to quickly whiz you through this and then I'll be coming off. Graphic scores. So graphic scores like this one are used long before any notation. And again, we're back to those mental models. It helps to build up an understanding of how written notation works by highlighting the patterns. So this song is, I'll sing it to you. Old Mr. Woodpecker sitting in a tree. Old Mr. Woodpecker singing merrily. As you could hear, it's a so and a me song. And I would often say to students when I show them a graphic score like this, I'd say, what can you see? Because that's so interesting to find out from them what they can see. And different children will see different things. So some of them will see the pitch difference, so and me. And other children will see the big woodpecker and the little woodpecker, for example, yeah? And some of them might see the fact that they're sitting on telegraph wires, or really interesting to see and ask them, what do you see? So graphic scores actually feature quite heavily. We were talking about the illustrations and how they are used to highlight, reinforce subtly pedagogical points. Again, the illustrator Graham Longdon. So this is for a beautiful song called Rain is Falling, Rain is Falling Down. Let me just move that here. Rain is falling down. Good for today here. Rain is falling down. Pitter patter, pitter patter, rain is falling down. So could you see or hear how the phrase structure is mirrored through the pictures? Yeah. So just another little way that we're trying to reinforce the learning and make it really quite a subliminal thing, if you like. And again, here's another song, Bells in the Steeple, and the bells, this is where we introduce thirds or skips, you know. Well, bells in the steeple, how loudly they ring. And here the children can see that they are missing out, not singing. They are skipping over the re and the fa. Yeah. Okay. Another aim is to help the children avoid cognitive overload. I sometimes realise I throw far too much at my students in a lesson. You know, I'm asking them to do this, I'm asking them to listen to that, and I'm asking them to watch out for the fingering, all at the same time. Keep a steady rhythm, get the notes right, look at the music. And it just overloads the brain, and it kind of gets a bit fried, to be honest. So here, again, in my ambition to link up relative solfa with fixed pitch, you've got do, re, mi, and this is actually for rain is falling down, because the idea is that we want them to move and transpose the piece around, and they might eventually sing it, you know, with if C is do, what note is re, D, and what note is mi, E. So they might then sing before they play E, E, D, D, C, E, E, D, D, C. Yeah, and then we might try transposing it into a different key again. Okay. And then this is what I refer to as rhythm solfa. Now, this is such an important tool in the learning process for getting these mental models, for getting the oral going, to getting the listening going. And it's something that we miss out, actually, when we go to an instrument. When we look at this, we've got to think about the rhythm. We've also got to think about the pitch direction and how one pitch relates to another. So this is a song called I Have a Dog, and it's actually number 12 in book 1. Number 12 in book 1, and it's oh, it's a bit high for the moment. I have a dog, mi, mi, re, do, 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 re, re, mi, so, mi, mi, re, do, do, re, mi, do. Definitely a bit high. I think I should have written that one in F major, actually, to be honest. Anyhow, an important tool. Final thing I'd like to just point out before I come off the screen is the end of the book. So this is the end of book 1, and before they graduate to book 2, they have to do some more I cans. So this is how to complete it, and they have to celebrate together what they've learned so far. And I can sing 3 songs with the words from memory, and we might do this for sort of 2 or 3 weeks before we say, yes, you've earned your certificate now, you know, and it's actually up to them. How do they think they've earned their certificate? So I can clap and say the rhythm language of Here Sits the Fat Cat from memory. And this is in an attempt to get them to recognize how far they've come, to remember all that they've covered, and also to make sure that the learning is there, before we then move on to the second book. Okay, yeah, and that's the last bit. So I'm just going to stop that share, and I'm just going to, okay, here we go, stopping the share. Ooh, there we go. All right. So I'm just wondering if there are any questions that are coming my way at the moment before I show a short little bit of video.
Several of the questions I saw had to do with how you teach the motions to the songs and sing along when doing online lessons, how this would work in online lessons.
Okay, so just like you saw me do, let me just think of a song that we could do. In fact, let's just do Engine. So if I was doing Engine, for example, I wouldn't teach the song first. So the first thing to do is to get the student used to the song. And actually, children have these wonderful sponge-like memories. Once they've heard something 2 or 3 times, and you'll know this from your piano teaching because they can absorb. If you play, they will actually just try and imitate it. So I will get them to engage them in doing a movement like this one. So stamp, stamp, clap, clap. And I will introduce the song and sing it to them for the first time. Whilst they're doing that, they're not just sitting and passively listening. They are doing some sort of action. Let's take Bells in the Steeple. Okay, so I'd like you all to join in now, because this is how I might do this with a student. All right, so we're going to tap your right hand on your right knee, like this. 1. And then you're going to pat your hand. Can you all copy me and do that? Keep it going. Bells in the steeple, how loudly they ring. This is a holiday. Ding, ding, dong, ding. Keep it going. If that's really easy, see if you can do this. I'm turning my hand upside down now. That's good. Off I go. Bells in the steeple, how loudly they ring. This is a holiday. Ding, dang, dong, ding. So by doing that, you see, you've already got the song in your head. So now if I do a my turn, your turn, and what I'm going to do, probably what is always a good idea, is to ask the pupil to mute themselves so that I can just deliver the song and they can copy without me actually hearing what they're doing. So my turn, your turn. And this is a long song, I have to admit. I've got to do this in quite long phrases, but I'll do much more on this in the training next week, if you can make it. My turn, off I go. Bells in the steeple, how loudly they ring. Your turn. My turn. This is a holiday. Ding, ding, dong, ding. Your turn. Hey, good job over there. I'm going to sing the song all the way through to you one more time. And this time I just want you to stand and listen. And I'd like you to see if you can count how many words start with the letter D. D for doggy. How many words start with the letter D in the song? Can you count those while I sing the song? Off I go. Bells in the steeple, how loudly they ring. This is a holiday. Ding, dang, dong, ding. And, you know, at that point they could come off the mic and we could start talking again. But could you feel, I wonder if anybody got the answer. Pop your answers in there. And could you feel how that question actually reconcentrates you? It just focuses the mind. If I just say, just listen to me sing, I've got a green sheet here, look. They're going to get distracted. If I give them a question to focus on, this is a really, really good little trick. If you just give them a question, and it can be, I've never done that question before in my life, but it's a really good one because all the D's come at the end. So they have to keep listening right through to the very end. And by the time we've done that, by the time we've done the actions, and then we've done my turn, your turn, and they've listened to the song all the way through, then there's a good chance they will actually know it. However, I'm also going to say that I am creating a video series for the children, and I've only just started this, and it's a bit of a trial at the moment, but I'd love it if some of you are able to tell me what you think of this. And this is for, this is going to be on Instagram on my account, Dr. Sally Cathcart. But there's also going to be over on the YouTube channel. And this is me, I'm just going to let this run because this is me talking to your pupils with the idea that in between lessons, this will help them remember and this will give them the opportunity to practice songs. So I am talking to the pupils here, to the students, and hopefully again to the parents, because we need to bring the parents round to this way of understanding as well. So I'll just let this run and I hope you can all hear it, and it's not too fuzzy. We know it was a bit fuzzy before, but fingers crossed. Hello, my name's Sally and I'm the Sally Says from your new books Ready to Play. Here it is, Sally says, and I keep popping up in the book. So I thought I'd keep popping up as well to help you a little bit in between your piano lessons with all the different chants and songs you're doing. So we're going to start today with Jelly on a Plate, which is the very, very first chant in the book. Now, Jelly on a Plate, we have to do lots of big movements to be the jelly, because jellies do all kind of wiggly wobbly things, don't they? So make sure that you do lots of big actions, and I'm going to do them in a minute as well. And we can both start together, and to bring us both in, I'm going to say, off we go, which actually is what this book is called, isn't it? Look, off we go. And every time you want to do a chant or a song, yeah, that's what we're going to start with. So let's get going. Are you ready? Off we go. Jelly on a plate. Brr, jelly on a plate. Brr, whipple, wobble, jelly on a plate. Brr. Now, I think you're probably able to do that all by yourself, aren't you? So how about if I sit down at the piano and I'm going to play the accompaniment and you see if you can do Jelly on a Plate. Are you ready? Off we go. Jelly on a plate. Jelly on a plate. Good job there. Now, how about doing it with some different words? So instead of jelly and on a plate with all the wibble wobbles, you need to come up with something different. There are some suggestions on page 4, so it could be pizza in the fridge or ice cream in the car. Whatever you choose, you need to think about some new words and to create some new actions for it. So I'll tell you what, I'll do it one more time and you do it with your new words and your new actions. Are you ready? Off we go. I think I put some extra notes in there at the end. Good job there again as well, I'm sure, and you can show that to your teacher when you go to your next lesson and they'll be able to play it along with you live. So jelly on the plate is, as the case may be. Okay, so as I say, those are the first video that I've done 2 other songs, the next 2 songs, because I know that singing online is quite challenging to do things together. I know it takes time to make videos, and even when you're on face-to-face lessons, singing is difficult, is challenging at the moment. So I thought, well, if I do those, then you know that you can mix and match the way that you're presenting the songs and that you are getting students to learn them, and you could still do the activities in the lessons even if you don't do the actual singing.
Sally,
I say that. Go on.
Oh, sorry. I just somebody had asked about the video, so I'm so glad you're doing those. I think those will be so helpful to the students, but I just had an idea that it would be helpful for me learning how to teach the songs too, to watch those videos and practice, because another question that came up was, what do you do if you have reluctant singers? And I am definitely a reluctant singer and always have been, so I think those videos would definitely be helpful for teachers to watch and practice before.
Absolutely. I mean, we did, just before we went into the lockdown in the UK with my editor, we spent 2 days having a lot of fun recording all the songs, which we recorded me singing the songs, me singing with the piano, me playing the piano, and those were all on the YouTube channel. However, they are a little static, I would say. So what I'm going to be doing is producing songs here in my home environment that I agree, I think is just as useful for teachers. For people who've got children who are reluctant singers, well, what you need to do is you need to get something like a na, okay? So I have a na family, and actually they're all going to be introduced on the, and he gets very excited. And children will sing to puppets in a way that they won't sing. You find that, in a way that they won't sing to adults, or they won't sing, they forget. They're so distracted by the puppet that they forget. Also the games and the activities, again, they're so distracted by what they're doing, they end up joining in, even if they don't really realise they're going to. So, you know, I also do things with cups and that sort of thing, and they get so engrossed in the activity that before they know it, they're singing along with the song. And you know, I have a reluctant singer in my studio as well, and you know, we just laugh our way through it. I will just keep modelling. I don't make a big thing of it if they don't join in. I might go, I seem to be doing a bit of a Sally solo here, and she'll have a giggle, you know. And but there's all sorts of different ways that you can get round, and just don't keep going on about it, basically. Just use humour to get round it, rather than you must sing.
Since we only have about 5 minutes left, there was another question here about how you combine this with Piano Safari or another method you're using. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good question. So, like all of you out there, I love Piano Safari. And I think, you know, we have a lot in common, the books, although they have very separate pedagogical strands. There are an awful lot of overlaps between the two books. The way I would do it, or the way I am doing it with my young pupil, is, and it will depend on the age of the pupil, like I said, and it will depend on their musical background, their musical heritage, what they bring to lessons. But I would start, what I'm doing is I'm starting with this. I'm starting with this as the first thing in a lesson. And that's why Jelly on the Plate, I've given you that teacher's guide to use that as the starting point for piano lessons. With my pupil Cecily, I got as far as Old Mr. Woodpecker, which you've already seen, just purely doing that in lessons, just doing those songs in lessons. 1-2 songs maybe each week, not going any, not spending too long on a song, just keeping moving on. And then at that point, I went in and I taught her some of the rote pieces from Piano Safari, you know, Charlie Chipmunk, Hungry Herbie Hippo. And it's when she had learnt 1 or 2 of those, actually then I produced this book for her. Yeah, that's when I produced the book. And of course, at that point, she's already covered quite a few things that are in this book for pulse, for rhythm. So you can just go, oh, you know all this, you know all this, you know. And it's so lovely to be able to go, you know this, don't you? And they go, yes, yes, I know. Oh, this is so exciting, you know. And now they've got 2 books to be excited about. So they're playing the piano with all the rote pieces, and they've got the ready to play, which you know is going with the rhythmic sense, getting the sound going in their heads. And then I think really it's dependent on the age of the child how you're going to sequence the 2 things together, because they're not a total match. They're absolutely not a total match. But you're going to keep working through both books. You know, for example, I was thinking with still in Unit 2, of course, we go on to Mary Had a Little Lamb, which is in Book 1. And of course, it uses Mi, Re, Do, doesn't it? Mary Had a Little Lamb. So it could be that you go to Rain is Falling Down, which is that song that you've just heard me sing, because that has a Mi, Re, Do. Mi, Mi, Re, Re, Do. And then when it comes into Unit 2, you know, you've even got the C, D, E march. Do, re, mi, do, re, mi. Yeah. And every time you have a song that's pentatonic, then you might want to bring in, I mean, one that I've used very successfully with the Tree Frog. Yes, you've also got Tree Frog. Which one? Dandelion Fluff. Yes, that's the one that's got the full pentatonic. Now, I think the other thing about solfa is don't feel that you've got to wait to teach them the whole thing. You can use the singing names even if they haven't officially learnt them yet. Yeah, that's fine. That will work. You know, so you can just go do re mi re do la so do re mi, and if all you do is do the do re mi re do and pick that up, because the next bit goes a bit high, doesn't it? I'm not going up there today. You know, there's little links that you can make across to make the learning easier for them all the time and to help them remember it. Okay, hopefully that answered that.
It's
Oh, I
just
like Debbie's. I
What?
like Debbie's response here.
Yes.
So I
How
think
she can see how beautifully.
excellent presentation. I feel like, you know, I've learned so much about your philosophy behind the books by listening to your presentation today. And something at the beginning really struck me when you said that we have to engage students' heart, body, and mind with music before moving to the more abstract concepts like notation. Because of course, you know, experiencing music and sound should come first, because then it will bring meaning to the notation later. And just thank you for your wisdom with that. And I am so excited to start beginners with these books.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I just think it's such an important thing. It's such an important pillar of learning the piano, that we step back from the piano keyboard, which is so magnetic, and that we just, you know, just make sure that the musician is there. And it's not as though it's boring, you know, it's such fun to do. You have such a laugh doing it. So as I was saying to people, you know, I am doing some training, free training next week. And it's about 2.5 hours on Monday and 2.5 hours on Tuesday. I think it's kind of lunchtime over in Eastern time. And if it's okay with Katie and Julie, I will post that all into the Piano Safari Facebook group. Yes. There is also, if you look at the jelly on a plate, there are some QR codes there, and I think one of them will take you to our Facebook group as well that we have for Ready to Play. And there's already nearly 300 people over there, and we're having a lot of fun, especially with NAR. We're going to have a NAR party soon, a puppet party. So you better get your puppets, Julie and Katie, so that you can come too.
Just mentioning the PDFs that you provided, Sally, we had some technical difficulties dropping them in the chat. It wouldn't let me do that. I was wondering if it was because I was recording or something, but we will post those in Teaching Piano Safari.
Yes, that would be super. That would be really super. Yeah, so just look out for them in there, and also this invitation to come and join me in the training, because I've only got 100 places, and you know, I think it'll probably be quite popular if you can make it. Lovely. Well, thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. This was a wonderful way to spend the afternoon.
Yes.
Yes, I agree. Me too. I really enjoyed doing that. So hopefully that's given everybody a little bit of background knowledge, and you know, I think we all have to power up really here and just get parents on board with this way of teaching, where we're actually teaching the musician rather than just somebody who can wiggle their fingers around. Musicians for life. Definitely. Well, thank you everybody for attending today, and yeah, just feel free on the thread on Teaching Piano Safari to ask more questions if we weren't able to address them today in the webinar. See everybody later. Bye. Bye-bye.